Welcome back, students. I'm happy to see a lot of you are advancing so quickly through the courses. However, I'd like to take a step backwards in this session to take a look at something I feel I have not quite focused on enough during my previous lessons. We are going to be making a very simple mesh uh, and working on your UV mapping. Um, you can tint and color a mesh without a UV map, sure. But when you start making custom textures with shading or detailing, it will not only increase the quality of your creations, but it'll increase the customizability of your mesh tenfold. And of course, all I want is to help you reach your maximum potential so you can release your maximum creativity. Remember though, don't try to follow along with me just yet. I want you guys to watch the workflow, figure out what to expect, listen to the hotkeys that I've used, and then work on your projects using the YouTube video after class. That way you can get a better idea of what you're doing. So let me pull up Blender here. We don't have any vocabulary today because I am taking a step back. So it's all stuff that we've previously learned. We're just taking a little bit more of an in-depth look into it. Let's see, I do have my screencast keys on. So we are going to just hop right in to making our item for today, which is a book or a tome. And I know it doesn't seem like much of a crazy thing, but we want something simple for you guys to toy around with for UV mapping. So I'm going to press 5. I increased the size of some of the text down here so you guys could see it better. But I press 5 on my numpad to go into orthographic view so I can see things flat. And I'm going to go 1 into front view. And I'm going to shrink this down to about the thickness that I want my book. And I'm going to press 7. And I'm going to lengthen this. Let's go to about there. That's about what I'll have my book set to. So now, let me pull up a thing that I have. There we go. Let's start. So these are going to be our papers. So we're going to leave this like this, and we're going to build our case off of it, our bookcase or book edge. So I'm going to shift D to duplicate and right click to keep it in its position. P selection. So I think what I'm wanting to do is I'm going to cut this. So on the back here, the back of our book, I'm going to cut it in half by doing Control R, left click, right click, just to keep it centered. And I'm going to do V to split it and right click to keep it in place. And then I'm just going to L select the bottom and vertices. And then we're going to do the same thing with the center of the book here. Left click, right click, V, L, X, vertices. And you can see with these lines here what part of the book we've kept, right? So now I can add mirror, but I'm going to uncheck X, and in fact I'm going to do Y and Z. And what this is going to do is it's going to make it so it's basically putting back what I just deleted. But now we're only working on this small piece here. So I'm going to extrude out, and let's press Y, so we're extruding out straight. I'm extruding the top of the book out, as you can see, because we want to get a bit of a ledge there. And it's done the same thing on the other side because of our mirror. So now we're going to select these here, view from top view, E to extrude, X to set our mark, or not our mark, our axis. And I'm going to try to extrude about the same amount. So we've got our book working. I actually want to add a bit of a curve to our book. So I'm going to select the pages, Control R, left click, right click. And I'm going to select this. I want to move it inwards a little, just because I want to have like a bit of a neat curve here. And then I'll do the same thing to our cover here. So I'll select this edge here. And let's look at it from this angle so we can see this angle here. And I'll move that into there. So now our book has a little bit of an interesting curve to it, nothing crazy. So now I'm going to extrude out our entire book cover. And I right click to keep it in its position. So I'll do Alt S, which is proportional scaling. And I'll just thicken our cover. Let's maybe have it about that thick. But the back came out a little funny. Now, I could, actually, you know, I probably will. I'm going to use this to my advantage of how it came out. And I'm going to actually add a loop cut here. I'm going to do 1 and then reverse my view with 9 so that I can see what I'm doing. I'm going to tap C. I'm going to hide this here, or not hide, deselect this so that all I have selected is this here. So let me go 1, 9 again. And I'm going to tap G, and I'm just going to pull this out until it's curved in kind of a nice way. I kind of want to pull this part out a little more. So now we've got our nice curve. So what I'm going to do before we go any further is I'm going to press Smooth in object mode. And I'm actually going to do the same on our pages because eventually we're going to be combining all these together. And I'm going to turn on in the, let's see, the data, object data tab, I'm going to turn on auto smooth under normals. And then I'm going to set all of my sharp edges. This is something that you're going to want to stay on top of whenever making something that needs to be sharpened. So there's my pages looking nice and sharp. So let's go sharpen up our book edges. And I'm holding Alt to select these parts. It's called a loop select. I'm just holding Alt and right clicking and it'll select a whole row until it can't select them anymore. And I hold Shift Alt to add to my selection. So I can just Control E, mark sharp. Let's turn on our auto smooth there. There we go. Now we've got a bit of an issue here where this is looking sharp, but I don't want it to. So I'm going to select that. I'm going to move it in or out. Let's try this part here. Let's actually move it along the line here a little, move it out a bit. And what we're looking for is there it is, for that sharp edge to disappear. Because we don't want that area to be sharp. So now let's decorate our book just a little bit. So I am going to start off. This looks a little far in because I want it about the same distance that this has. So we're going to go based off of these lines we have here. And I'm actually going to add a couple of more. So I'm going to add one about here. And one about here. And one about here. What I'm looking at is the corners here because I want to add some cool looking corners to our book. So let's go into face select and I'm going to select these here, these here, these along here, and I guess let's do these down here. I think it would look nice if it wrapped around. So now let's shift, or actually, I'm going to select this part too. Let's just have it wrap around the top there. Why not? Why not? Shift D to duplicate, right click, P, selection. We're just separating these so they're easier to work with. There's no like crazy reason to do this. It's just makes it easier to work with. We're going to join it back anyways later. We just want to make sure that what we've got is easily worked with. So I'm going to select all and I'm going to Alt S to proportionally scale it out just a tad. I'm going to select all of my edges using edge select. Trying to keep track of which edges I have selected. Using wireframe to double check where I'm selecting. I actually noticed here, not sure if I'm actually mad about that though, but I noticed here that I didn't select that part here. So I'm just gonna go into vertex select. I'm gonna tap E to extrude and Y axis. I'm gonna move that in. And then we're gonna select the 4 vertices here and add our face in. So there we go. And so this is easier to see. I'm actually gonna make this a bit of a different color. There we go. I feel like that's easier to see. So now, back to selecting our edges, because I lost my edges while I was doing that. So let's see, that looks like what I want to select there. And then we'll select these edges here. That looks right. So I'll tap E to extrude, right click, Alt S. So that didn't look right. So let's change our pivot point to individual origins. And what that's going to do is that's going to treat this section here and this section here as 2 completely separate objects. So when I scale down, or when I Alt S, let's see, no, it's still going towards the center. So let's try, because this isn't scaling how I'd like. Blender is all trial and error. So I've scaled on a Z axis and I still see some vertices sticking out that I don't like how they're sticking out. So I'm just gonna go manually move those in. There's really nothing wrong with it because all I'm doing is hiding it. I just want to make sure, so right here we have these ugly vertices crossing over other faces. I just want to make sure stuff like that isn't going on when I hide my vertices. So I'm going to select these, shrink them down a little, pull them in. Let's go ahead and select these. Or is it just that one? Oh, all right. So here I can see that I need my clipping turned on. Move that down and then in. Let's move this down. There we go. So now I got to go in and set all of my sharp edges. A lot of sharp edges on books. Be careful, they are weapons. Alright, so now we're going to add a little more to these edges here. So, I'm going to go to face select. I'm going to select these 3 faces and these 3 faces. And I'm going to tap E to extrude up. I'm going to extrude to about there. So now I can go into my edge select and select the edges around here, the edges around here, Control E, clear sharp, because those I don't want sharpened. Same thing with this edge here, and this edge here. Control E, clear sharp. Now I'm just going to go around to some of the edges around here that I do want sharpened and select them. Which is a lot for whatever reason. Welcome to books. Control E, mark sharp. That looks about right. Not right here though. Nope, that was a seam. Control E, mark sharp. There we go. That looks right. So now, let's say we bring out these little center portions a little more. Well, actually, no, let's wait on that. Let's actually wait on that. Let's go back to our book cover. Let's make another fun little design in the center. So I'm adding more loop cuts, shame on me. I'm increasing my topology, but I can go back and remove this later. I'm just using it to build off of for the time being. So let's add that topology in, and I want to use these faces here to make a neat little like inner border here. I'm going to extrude upwards. Let's go ahead and change the material here again, just so we can see it better. I'll make this one like purple. And I'm going to do edge select and make sure we have things sharpened. I'm actually going to sharpen this down here as well. Well, no, maybe not. Control E, mark sharp. Here and here, Control E, mark sharp. I think that's about good for marking those. I'm going to select all around the edges. I'm going to do your favorite thing, which is bevel. Bevel, bitches, bevel. Just give it a little bit of dynamic there. And then so we've got a nice cool looking border. Let's go ahead and go back to our corners. And let's make this look kind of neat when paired with our edges here. So I'm going to, let's actually go back to our border here and select this. I'm going to move this down. And then I'm going to take, let's go vertex select maybe. I'm just wanting to select, well actually let's do face select. I'll select this face. I'm going to move it up just a tad because I'm looking right here and I want this vertex a little bit above this so that I can take it, tap 7, and put it in here a little bit. Actually, I think I'll go all the way to there. Then I'll do the same thing here. I'll go all the way to here. And then I'm going to control, or actually no, I'm going to use my K cut tool to cut straight lines across these. And I'm just clicking. This, when the green square turns red, it means you've hit a vertex, and that's what you're looking for. So I can select this and move it up, and it just kind of makes like a cool, almost gem looking design there. And I'm going to Control E, mark sharp on that. That looks neat. So then let's press K for cut. Let's cut these again on this side. Enter this. Let's go up, and I'm going to level these out. Some of you from a front view. Let's go back to median point for our pivot point. Scale on a Z axis to 0. And then I'm going to just mark sharp on this again. Looks pretty neat. Very simple. So let's continue this with an extra little something on the center bit down here, or on the center of the actual book itself. So let's add, let me say we add a gem. Let's add a gem. I'm seeing faces right here that I don't want. So these faces here that I'm seeing are smashed against this mirror here. See that? I don't want that. So I'm going to select those and do X faces. And then I'm going to select this. Let's do face select. And I'll just select these two. Shift D, right click, P selection. So Shift D, remember, is duplicate. Let's make this material, red. Or reddish orange, whatever. And I'm going to go into vertex select. And let's select these here, this edge, and I'm going to go W, Loop Tools, Circle. And then I can shrink that inwards and scoot it over until it's lined up within our border here. And I'm going to actually select the central vertex here. And see how it's white? That means it's our active vertex or our active element. So I'm going to set my pivot point to active element, and I'm going to scale on that green axis there, which I believe is Y, just so I can get this point scaled down properly to where I want it. So now I could just do this, be done, but I want it to be fancy. So I'm going to X vertices. I'm going to select this. I'm going to tap E and then Z to bring it up, scale down. Oh, wait. Before scaling down, let me turn clipping back on and set back to median point. And then I'm going to scale down. It's actually a little too high up, so let's tap E again, scale down, fit in and up, and tap F for fill. And then I am going to go into edge select. Let's select these here. Gobi, please do not speak during lessons. All right, so I'm going to Control B here. And it looks like we have, okay, so I can't bevel these here because it is on a mirror. So I'm gonna Control B just up here. Something's going on here. So I'm gonna Control Z, select all, and remove doubles. Let's see, that removed nothing. So let's see why this is not beveling for me properly. Why you no bevel? X faces. Let's check our vertices. Vertices look fine. There's definitely something interesting going on with the faces there. Oh, you know what? Control N. There we go. It's my normals. I'm dumb. All right, so I'll re-add that face. It was definitely my normals. They were swapped, and now I can bevel here just to add that little bit of extra dimension to my gem. We have our book. In fact, here, I'll even go in and add, let's make that white. Let's go in and add, what, 5 different pages? Well, it's of course more pages than that, but I'm going to Control Bevel, increase this, and all we're doing is we're making it look like there's a little bit of more pages here than you know there really is. So it's not just a block of white. And then I'm going to shrink this in, just giving a little more dimension. That looks good. There's our original book. So there will be more to the meshing, but for now, I want to teach you guys how to UV map this. So first, let's go to our gem, because we don't want the gem on the bottom as well, or at least I don't for my book. I want the gem only on the front cover. So I'm going to remove the Z portion of my mirror. Same thing with my border, but the rest of it can stay. So I'm going to go on ahead. I'm going to go on my gem here. I'm going to apply my mirror. On my border, I'll go on ahead and apply my mirror. On my edges, do I want to apply this mirror? Let's go ahead and apply the mirror. Let's apply the book edge mirror as well. Actually, it looks like we can apply all these mirrors, so that's fine. That's perfect. Because then, once all the mirrors are applied, we can join them all together. Make sure, yeah, it still has all the sharps. And then, I want to UV map these. So, of course, typically you would think, oh yeah, let me just unwrap. No, no. So, when you're unwrapping something, you want to think about how you're going to texture it. So, gem's pretty easy. Let's go one piece at a time. There's my gem. But it's a little weird looking. We've got this center piece that is a little small compared to the rest. So I'm going to try something called relaxing because it feels like this is a little tight here. So let's do Control V, which I know is the paste hotkey, but it's for relaxing a UV in your UV editor. And what that did is that made it a little more proportional so that you don't get some weird texture stretching going on when you go to texture that. So I'm going to shrink this down because we don't need too much resolution on our gem. I'm going to actually, let's make a new image here. So we got the black image. And then let's go to our border. So let's see, does our border have an underneath? It sure does, but guess what? It doesn't need that. So let's actually isolate our border for a moment. Control I to invert my selection, and then H to hide it. So now I'm going to select these underneath faces here because, so you can see how unwrapping it in its current state, you can see what that's done. And it's kind of weird looking. You want to make sure there's an opening so it lays flat. Think of it as if it was maybe paper craft or fabric or just anything you would curve. Maybe just think of it as a box. If there's a part that can open, pressing that portion maybe against the floor will help it to flatten out. So you want to make sure that you're making it so it's easier for your mesh to flatten out. If there's no openings, it'll be harder for it to flatten out, and that's why you mark seams. However, we don't need to mark seams if we have an opening like this. So now I can unwrap and you can see this nice unwrap. So I'm going to Control V to see what relaxing does. And you know what? I don't like that. I'm scrolling to relax and unrelax it. And you know, I don't like how it looks relaxed. So I'm going to right click and keep the majority of its rectangular shape. And then I'm going to Alt H to unhide everything. I'm going to select my border here. I'm just going to throw it to the side. It's going to hang out right over here for now. So we've got our gem, hide. We've got our border, hide. What about this? So this definitely unwrapped weird. I don't know what I'm looking at here. So let's unwrap this a little better. This is a good place to put a seam. So we can do Control R and add a loop cut at the bottom of the book here. I'm actually wondering why that didn't go all the way around. So let's hide the edges of our book so that I can see what I'm doing. So then let's Control R at the top here. And this did not connect. So we're going to tap K and connect those and reselect this down here. So now we have, or actually let me do it on this side too. So now we have a line that wraps clear around the entirety of the edge of our book. So I'm going to go Control E, mark seam, because think of it as you're cutting this here. Like this is where you are cutting your mesh. You took scissors to this portion of your mesh, and now those are separated. It's not separated on your mesh itself, but it will be separated on your UV map. So if I were to select all and unwrap, or I could have just selected this and unwrapped. So I'm not sure why it has turned into 4 parts here, and I don't like it. I also don't like this. So I'm going to see what this is, right? Because I don't know what this little strand here is. So the way that I'm going to find that out is I'll select it in my UV image editor and I'll tap H to hide. And you can see that a section of my mesh has just become deselected. And this is very useful for when you have maybe a vertex that is giving you troubles or a section of your mesh that just isn't quite unwrapping properly and you have no idea what it could be. So I found out just now by hiding that portion that actually what's giving me so much trouble is a line of faces here that I messed up and didn't delete that was between my mirror. So I'm going to do my best to select these faces along this line. And I'm going to do X faces. Now it's gone. So let's see. This is not supposed to be in the scene currently. So now, why has my border? So let's go and tap L on this. Ooh, that is not unwrapping pleasantly. You can all the LHs. Uh, so so let's see why this is unwrapping with multiple parts. So let's tap H, and it looks like, oh, you know what? I bet you that row of faces that was there was causing my problems. So let's undo and let's try unwrapping again. There we go. That's what I wanted to see. So now I have a couple options here. I can leave it like this, or I can actually straighten all of this out if I wanted. So let's just focus on my UV map here for a moment. I'm going to hold Alt and right click here. Let's actually make sure, oh, that was V that I pressed. I don't know what that did. So let's C and deselect all of this. And I'm going to go W, align X. Or actually, nope, W, align Y. There we go. Alt right click, W, align Y. And what I'm doing here is because the book is a rectangle, it's okay to straighten out these vertices here. So I'm going to select these manually because it is going around the entirety of the book, which is not something that I want. So let's go W, align Y, and now I can go to the sides here and do it the opposite direction. So W, align X, and we're gonna nicely set this up so it's all nice and aligned and pretty. Now it's not good to do this aligning with everything, but considering it's a book and it's so straight, it's okay to do. So when you need something to be straightened out like this, it's okay. Just make sure you're not doing something like taking a line of vertices here and scooting it around, because then you're going to get problems with texture stretching. You want to keep these at about the relative locations that they came in when you initially UV mapped it. So I'm going to have this up here. Now let's focus on this. So the way that I know which edge to stop at on these corners here is you'll see there is this quad where one of them kind of goes to the edge funny, and that tells me that is where the corner of my book cover is. So I'm just going from there to here. I don't want to select those. And I'm holding middle mouse in order to deselect using this. I'm just tapping C for circle select, and then holding middle mouse if I want to deselect, holding left click to select. So let's align Y. And just realign all of this. You can see how quickly you can get through it once you have your first section done. It does not take long. It's very simple. Here we go. And then I can scroll to increase the size of my selection. W, align X. Here we go, and we're just holding Alt, right click, W, left click, Alt, right click, W, left click. Just all the way through. And then we're going to hit this one. We have to deselect a bunch. X. There we go. So I'm going to shrink these down a little bit like this so I can make room for everything else on my UV down here. So now we can unwrap our pages. So I'm going to do remove doubles because I noticed some weird things with it earlier. And that didn't really do much. So now I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it in half. Let me go to edge select. Let's go Control E, mark seam, tap L, U, unwrap. And I don't need to be too fancy with this. I'm going to relax it at the very least. I don't need to be too fancy with it because it is just pages. You're not gonna see too much. If you wanted to make it a little easier, actually, let's look into how we would make this easier to texture, yeah? Because I feel like that'll be beneficial to you. So maybe let's cut it. Let's actually remove this from our scene for now. Let's maybe cut it around here. Let's go Control E, mark seam, unwrap. Well, that's definitely easier. This is definitely something you can work with in order to, you can go in and do the aligning that we just did, and it will make it easier. However, it does look a little funny. So we got this right here, this section here. It's actually down here. So let's go on ahead, Control E, mark seam, unwrap. It's definitely unwrapping a little odd. Actually, why is that unwrapping with multiple? Control E. Oh, because that is this. Okay. I could try Control E, clear seam. Let's try going around here. All I'm doing is playing around with what is unwrapping. Oh, there we go. That's a good one. Playing around with what is unwrapping in what ways and how easy I feel it is to texture. And that's ultimately what you want to do is pick what you feel is easiest to texture. Because that's going to make all the difference. So I'm going to Alt H, select all. So now we have everything here. Oh, actually, I didn't UV map these. And actually, I'm going to separate these. And we're going to unwrap these a special way. So I'm actually going to start by recutting these. Let's remove all of these down here. X vertices. There we go. I'm going to add my mirror modifier back. And let's see what it looks like on an initial unwrap. I don't like it. I don't. What can I do to improve this unwrap? Well, let's try relaxing and see what this looks like. It is a bit of a complicated shape. It's actually not the worst. It is a bit of a complicated shape, so it's not going to be the easiest thing to unwrap. These are actually not too terrible. They look funky, so it's a little hard to tell what you're texturing. However, if you look closely, you don't have anything that looks tight. You don't have any overlapping vertices. So if you had a vertex that kind of looked like this, that would be a problem because then you have sections of your texture overlapping. But since we don't have any of that and everything seems well spaced, there's nothing that really seems like it's struggling around here. It's actually not too terrible of a UV. It's not the best, but it's not too terrible. So we can scoot this aside. And I'm just going to apply my mirror. And what that has done is that has made it so all of these will take the same texture. So whatever I texture this corner here will also apply to this, and to this, and to this. And the same thing with these corners over here. So now I can join these back to my original book. And I will just box select those and put them on my UV map. So let's move our gem out from our book cover, put it here, And we have our border. So let's put our border here actually, and I will take our pages and shrink them a little bit this way. Let's actually tap L on our border and H, because I'm going to move these around, but I don't want to move the border. I don't want to mess with it. And then box select, middle mouse to deselect. Oh. And let's rotate 90 degrees and put that up here. So now let's go back to selecting all, and there we go. We have our book. But wait, there's more. So I'm not going to stop here. In fact, now that we've got our book, I'm sure you want to know, how are you going to open this book? I mean, the pages are a block. So let's open our book. So I'm going to actually Shift D to make a copy of our book. I'm just going to throw it aside. Now we're going to take our book and let's cut open the pages. I'm going to look at the center here, Control, or actually no, I'm going to tap V to separate it, because all I've done is I've used Alt right click to select that section. And now I'm going to view from a front view, press B, box select everything above that line. I'm actually going to select these here as well. Just want to make sure I have everything selected on that half. And now I can pick where I'm gonna have my origin be that I will, or my pivot point be, by choosing 3D cursor as my pivot point. And let's have it be about here. Let's see how that rotates. Nah. And I'm just gonna play around with this until I can get it to unwrap or open up the way that I want. Now I'm seeing that I have a part selected I don't want. So I just did Shift L to deselect the bottom part of the pages. Let's see. Yep, that did what I want. So I'm just gonna let this unwrap a little funny. So let's go R -90, R -90, or -180, because I got my measurements wrong. And let's just move this in. Let's actually take that up to there, because I'm seeing these pages are even with the red line here. And then we do have this crazy looking center that's going on here. So I'm gonna select that. View from a front view. And let's set this back to median. All I'm doing is I'm making this look a little nicer in the center so that our book doesn't look absolutely crazy. And I'm going to actually lay this part, oh, let's go into vertex select. I'm going to lay this part down a little flatter. Now keep in mind, the way we're doing this, it's keeping the same texture as the original. So this is going to be the same book. And you won't have to worry about texturing multiple books exactly the same. So now our book is opened, but our pages are looking a little funny. So let's go on ahead and go to our pages here. Let's go edge select. I'm going to select the top edge here and tap F, F. I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to tap F, F. So now we've got two parts here that don't share a UV because they're new faces. So let's go into these. Let's go Control E, mark seam, and then let's select these center edges, Control E, clear seam. And now, if you wanted to, you could actually view from a top view here and go U and project from view. And that literally just projects it exactly how you're seeing it. So if you don't want there to be any stretching in the regards of how you're viewing it from a certain angle, you can do that. However, I'm not going to do that. I want things perfectly centered. So let's try unwrap. Smart UV. I'm just seeing how these are unwrapping. So, let's go project from view bounds. There we go. So now I'm going to select these two intersections here and I'm going to pull them in towards each other. And I'm going to select these sections here and align them. And then I'm going to pull them away from each other. And that's how we're going to make our pages. So this is 2 pages. You can use a rectangular texture for this. It doesn't have to be a perfectly square texture. And you can make your pages using that. So now we've got that set. Obviously, the pages of a book don't bend this way. So let's fix it. So we can go in and I'm going to select the top edges here and the top edges here. I'm going to take my proportional editing and set it to connected. I'm going to view from a front view and we're going to move these in towards each other. And I'm actually just going to connect these for now. So tap 0. Just going to have those connected. And then I can go in and kind of just pull them in. I'm actually, you know what? Maybe I won't use proportional editing. You can if you want to. It's obviously an option. I'm just going in and kind of curving this because a lot of the times the pages of a book, when they are used or when they are opened, will have a bit of a curve here. Now see, I think this little jagged bit here that we've got is kind of cool looking. However, you don't have to keep it. So I'm just gonna go here. And I did vertex select. And I'm just going in to kind of straighten these out. Remember, they don't need to be perfect. When you open a book, the pages are not perfectly symmetrical. They're just not. It's not how that works. So you don't have to make everything absolutely perfect. I'm just straightening these out, making them look nicer. I can see I had some weird things going on down here that I'm just gonna adjust. Because I can tell with the sharps that I marked, it's acting a little funny. That's okay. Anything can be fixed. So I'm just gonna curve these bit by bit. In fact, I see right here, these aren't where I want them to be. So I'm gonna align those on the Z-axis, select all and remove doubles. Oh, you know what? That removed doubles I didn't want to remove. So then I'm just gonna select this and remove doubles. There we go. So let's move this in. And good enough. Doesn't need to be perfect. I can see we have a bit of clipping right here, so I'm just going to go edge select. Let's move up these edges. Or actually, no, those are supposed to be moved down, huh? Because that's supposed to stay blue. So let's check the other side. The other side looks good. I'm still going to move them down just a tad, just in case, because I see the edges kind of peeking out a little bit. Makes me uncomfortable. And that's just how you reduce texture clipping. But now our book is open. And so that we're not texturing this face with the original book texture, we want to make sure that this is a different, or these pages with the book texture, we want to make sure these are a different face. So I'm just going to go here and select these. Oh, actually, wait, I missed a part. Our book looks weird on this angle, doesn't it? I forgot to loop cut here, Control R, left click, and then you can actually just move that over. I'm going to loop cut here, and I'm actually going to do another one here and here. There we go. So the reason I did all those loop cuts is so I can take these here and then use proportional editing to curve my pages up a little. Actually, I don't like how those extra loop cuts are behaving. So let's start off with these then. I'm just curving my pages up a little. And I'm actually going to curve the center bit down. And I'm just playing with it until it gets to a point that I like it. You don't need to be exact. If you really wanted to add a mirror modifier to this, you could. And then I'm going to take the edges of my pages here, and I'm actually going to pull them in like so. That looks a lot more natural, because pages would be tugged in like that. So we have our open book and our closed book, and then we're just going to set a separate face here for all of these that we have. For all of our little faces here, I'm going to add a new material. And you don't need to make all of these separate materials. You really do not. The only thing that needs to be a separate material is the front of the pages here. That's it. The rest of it, because it takes all the same UV, does not need to have another material. In fact, I'm going to go remove all of my other materials. Oh, actually, wait, let's do that. There we go. You want it to look like this in the end. Only 2 materials. That's all you need. You don't need to go crazy with your materials. And there are your books, and you can put whatever the hell you want on your pages, and you're good. And I'm really hoping that this helped with a lot of questions in regards to UV maps. And I think that that might be about the end of our lesson. Your homework is going to be to provide me with a UV mapped and textured book. If you provide an open book, I want to see something fun and interesting on your pages, whether it be a dumb picture of your face, a picture of your cat, or a picture of your best friend's butt. I want to see it. If you choose to do a closed book, I want to see it textured, or at least see your UV map, so that I can tell that you are understanding UV mapping with your work. I want to make sure that you can customize your work how you would like it done. And that is your homework. Let me know when you've plastered your best friend's butt all over your pages.